Alright, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about Summer Abigail, and this is actually one of those servants that a lot of people are disappointed in, that I actually don't think, when you actually look at their kit, they're all that bad. It's just kind of like Summer Kiara comes out on Banner 1, and she's like an exceptional art servant. She's like definitely getting her spot in the meta, and then you have Summer Abigail, who's kind of like this really debuff heavy buster servant, and maybe that's just like not appealing to a lot of people, but she is still good. Like, she's not bad, and I guess we'll just kind of get to the bottom of this in today's video. So let's just go ahead and start off by talking about her hits as we usually do. And Summer Abigail, I guess maybe this is a little contentious for a few people, because I can't even lie, the hits on this servant are really strange. So she is indeed a buster servant, but she only has one arts card, and then she's rocking the double quick cards. Now, her star gen is quite good at 15% with 3 hits on both of those quick cards, and keep in mind that as a foreigner, she does gain the passive 2 stars per turn. And, you know, I know some people kind of meme on it, but like, the 2 stars per turn, you know, sometimes, you know, you have 48 stars a turn, and those extra 2 stars, they come in clutch or something. So she can be a decent star gen, but was it worth sacrificing her consistency with her arts cards? Maybe not, right? Although her arts card is pretty good with 3 hits, rocking the 0.86% NP gain per attack. Like, it's not bad, especially if you can crit. I see what they're going for. They really want you to crit that arts card, and then you just like basically refund all of your NP, but they gave her a skill to kind of make up for that. But ultimately, I think making her a double buster, double quick card servant was a bit of a mistake, because it makes her a little bit less consistent. And maybe if they leaned into that like star genning niche a little bit more, maybe it would have worked. But I just don't think it quite hit like they wanted it to. But maybe the skills can save her. Again, I do think Summer Abigail is not atrocious. I just don't think she lives up to the hype of Summer Kiara. And as we can see in skill 1, similar to how Kiara's skill 1 introduces like this new mechanic of ranking up skills, Abigail introduces a new status ailment, and that is the sleep status, which is kind of interesting, right? Because it's like a 2-turn stun, but if you attack the enemy that is sleeped, quote unquote, you actually wake them up. So in theory, you can get more value out of your stun as long as you don't attack that enemy. The unfortunate thing is that the person you're probably going to want to stun is usually like the boss or something, and you're probably going to attack them anyway, which can be very unfortunate. But at the very least, she does remove all of their buffs and reduce their defense by 50% if they are asleep on a 6-turn cooldown. So it's like, it's not terrible. The skill is just like very wonky, but if you think about it, you can potentially stun, say, the boss character for 2 turns, right? But even if you don't stun them, you do lower their defense and yeet all of their buffs, so you can still get some really good like damage off on them. Like maybe they had an invincibility, you yeeted that off. They have a dodge, you yeeted that off. You can make a lot of use out of this skill right here. I mean, because minus 50% defense is no joke. Like, that is a lot of extra damage that you are putting on that boss. But again, it is while they're asleep, and after you hit them, they do lose that sleep status. So it's more like maybe Summer Abigail is just like this odd servant that you really have to like balance her skills, but it only gets odder as we get into even skill 2, where it just seems like this is almost a retread of the original Foreigner Abigail skill, which again isn't bad. Terror on the entire enemy party is pretty decent, because it's basically like a stun chance every turn for 3 turns, and 55% is not bad. But then you see again, she's just lowering defense by 20% for 3 turns on a 7-turn cooldown. You're really going really heavy into this like singular debuff the enemy, and we're not really buffing ourselves, which, as you guys know, I say this in like literally every video, different buff types in FGO multiply into each other, right? Like your attack buffs, your card buffs, whether that be an arts, quick, or buster buff, your NP damage buffs, and your special damage mods, those all multiply into each other. But Summer Abigail's not really doing that for herself. She's really just kind of debuffing the enemy. And in a way, she can do a lot of damage with it, but it also kind of hinders the way that she's able to do damage, right? Because on skill 1, they gotta be asleep, and then you gotta get the skill 2 off as well. And the only problem I have with like debuff heavy strategies is that if you're fighting an enemy that say has high debuff resistance, or say the most recent challenge quest over on JP for like the Doggo event, the Hokusai in that challenge quest has like debuff immunity for the entire fight, meaning stuff like this does not straight up just work on her at all. It just makes servants like this unviable. Like, I just find it better to have a strategy where you're buffing yourself with things, and maybe you have like a Summer Kama type deal where you can just like, oh, I do special damage against charmed enemies and I can charm people, but even if I don't charm them, I still do good damage. So again, it leads to her being a little bit odd. Let's talk about skill 3. This kind of saves things because it gives her a 50% battery and it gives her a buff to her debuff success rate. So it's supposed to kind of help her, you know, just stick those debuffs onto the enemy, really make those defensive debuffs stick, and then also you target one enemy and give them a 30% buster debuff down for 3 turns. Again, it's supposed to really help you out in like just destroying one enemy's defense and then just obliterating them with a very, very powerful NP. And Summer Abigail, despite her being an AoE servant, can really hit hard. But again, it's kind of like, if you're not landing all these debuffs, she really can be a whiff. But I would be remiss if I wasn't mentioning the fact that, like, because she has this 50% battery, it does make her viable with Koyanskaya and farming with Koyanskaya. That is a legitimate thing. If you guys don't know, like, the prime, optimal, just insane servants that do really good with the Koyanskaya farming meta are like these 50% battery servants that have a 6-turn cooldown specifically. Those are like the really big Giga Chads of the Buster meta. But with her not being able to buff herself, it kind of, I don't know, kind of seems to be counterintuitive to what Koyanskaya wants to do. But regardless, it is a good third skill, but it's a little wonky. But you guys kind of see where I'm coming from, like where we look at all these skills. Like, she can remove an enemy's buffs if you pop off with like the sleep status that's minus 70% between first skill and second skill, plus the 30% buster down. Like, this can be a very, very powerful servant, especially if we look at her NP. Her NP is incredibly strong. It has like the most important, I would argue, Amakusa-like effect on the NP, where she removes all of the enemy's defensive buffs before she does damage. This is why Amakusa is an absolute killer, because he removes all defensive, like if they stack defense, invincibility, dodge, random resistances to whatever your card type is, because, you know, I don't know, maybe they'll change Amakusa to an arts card. I don't even know, right? That's obviously useful. But solemn defense if we ever fight Castoria in the future, special damage resistances, all of that stuff, it's really useful. Like, it's one of the best effects you could have on an NP. But then you look at her overcharge, and she's further reducing the enemy's defense by 20% for 3 turns. And it's just like, I don't know what they were going for on this second banner. And like, Abigail being the headline unit, like, it's not bad. Like, this is not a terrible servant. If you end up pulling her, like, she's not terrible, but maybe disappointing is the right word to use, because Kiara is the banner 1 servant and she just absolutely cleans house. Kiara brings in this new mechanic where she's able to rank up her skills. She's absolutely insane with the newly dropped art support type servant Castoria. But then you look over at Abigail over here and like, she's good, and we know she'll be good with Koyanskaya, but it's like, I feel for me, she just really heavily relies on like this debuff strategy way too much, right? Like she relies on it way too heavily that like if you run into any servant that has like decent debuff resistance or just debuff immunity, she just gets completely shut down. Honestly, if they wanted to kind of like fix Summer Abby, maybe just give her a special damage mod on the NP, maybe just give her an NP damage buff. Something like that I think would be really, really strong for her, but I kind of want to see what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about Summer Abigail? I know a lot of people think she's just absolute hot dog water, like she's just absolute garbage. I don't think she's like that bad, but I think she's disappointing in comparison to Kiara. But maybe it's just copium, maybe I'm just trying to make those people that like actually pulled on this banner for like Summer Tomoe like myself, and then they happen to pull like Summer Abigail, maybe they just feel a little bit better. But I do legitimately think she's not that bad, right? Like, I don't think she's like super offensive to your account if you pull her, but it's just disappointing. Let me know all that good stuff in the comments down below. Make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe for that daily FGO content. And with that being said, I am out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.